So in this video, we're going to talk about how to solve one-step addition and subtraction equations. So remember, an algebraic equation tells us that two expressions are equal to each other. So by simplifying these expressions and then solving, we can find the values of x that make the equation true. So how do we make sure that a solution that we found is correct? Well, let's verify that x minus 3 equals 5 has a solution of x equals 8. So what you do to verify that a solution is correct is you have to plug this number back into your equation, everywhere you see the x. So what we do is we plug that in and we get 8 minus 3 equals 5. And we need to check whether that's true. Well, it is true because 8 minus 3 is 5. And so we get 5 equals 5, which is a true statement. So that's how we know that x equals 8 is the correct solution. So how do we find solutions to algebraic equations? Well, our strategy in doing this is that we have to undo all of the math operations that are in the equation originally. And we do this by doing what are called opposite operations, or some people will call them inverse operations. So for today, we're talking about addition and subtraction. The opposite of addition is subtraction, and the opposite of subtraction is addition. So that's how we're going to undo these operations in the equations that we're given. And our goal when we're doing this is to try to isolate the variable. We want to get the variable by itself on one side of our equation. So let's look at these problems. We have x plus 7 equals 4. So what is the math operation that's happening to x? Well, notice I have this plus 7. So that means that I am adding 7 to x in this equation. Well, I need to find the opposite. So what's the opposite of adding? Well, it's subtracting, right? So if I subtract 7, I can undo this operation in this problem. Similarly, what about y minus 3 equals 10? The math operation on y is that we are subtracting 3. Okay, so the opposite of subtracting is to add. So if we add 3, we can undo this operation. So there's an important idea. It's the property of equality. So the property of equality tells us that you can add or subtract the same number on both sides of your equation. This is very, very important when we're working on solving these equations. Whatever you do to one side of your equation must be repeated to the other side. That is the property of equality. If you do not do that, you're changing the meaning of the whole problem, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to solve it, and we're trying to find solutions. So whatever we do to one side of the equation must be repeated on the other side. So remember, our goal that we always want to keep in mind is that we are trying to isolate the variable. We want the variable to be by itself on one side of the equation. So our final goal is an equation like x equals some number, and that's what we're trying to work towards. So let's try solving this problem. So we have x plus 3 equals 10. So here we have a plus 3. So we need to think, what's the opposite of plus 3? Well, the opposite of adding is subtracting. So we're going to subtract 3 from both sides of this equation. So here on the left, I have x, and then plus 3 and minus 3 will cancel. And so that gives me x equals 10 minus 3, which is 7. We want to verify that our solutions are correct, so we're going to go back to the original problem and plug them back in. So I'm checking whether 7 plus 3 equals 10, which it does. So my solution is correct. So let's try solving y minus 1 equals 5. Here I'm subtracting 1, so the opposite of subtracting is adding. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And that will give me y. Minus 1 and plus 1 will cancel each other out. And y equals 5 plus 1, which is 6. So y equals 6 is my solution. I'm going to plug it back in and verify that my equation has been solved correctly. 6 minus 1 does equal 5. So my solution is correct. So let's try solving a couple more problems. We have x plus 7 equals 4. Remember, the opposite of addition is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. And that is going to give me x. The 7's will cancel, and I get 4 minus 7, which is negative 3. I'm going to plug that back in, so I get negative 3 plus 7. Does that equal 4? And yes, it does, so my solution is correct. Now I have y minus 3 equals 10. The opposite of subtracting is adding. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And that is going to give me y. Minus 3 and plus 3 will cancel. And I get y equals 10 plus 3, which is 13. Now I'm going to plug this back in and verify that my solution is correct. So I get 13 minus 3 equals 10. And 10 does equal 10, so that is correct. So remember that given an equation, you can isolate the variable and solve to find solutions using what are called inverse or opposite operations. The opposite of addition is subtraction, and the opposite of subtraction is addition.